colleagues from all around the world. Some of you might already seen this kind of things. I just made a mistake 1 hour ago. This is the second time, so I can learn this class more fluently. Yeah, my name is Jongmin Jung, chairing this opening ceremony. The BRAIN Korean 21st Center for International Migration and Diaspora Innovative Talents, along with the Center for Global Diaspora Studies of Chonnam National Universities, organizing an international conference on living, caring, and networking of diaspora in the age of uncertainty. The goal of this one-day international conference is to promote academic exchange and discuss issues related to diaspora, health, and pandemic, creating a global academic network. This year, we have 40 international and national scholars from 10 different countries and even global south as well. Yet, it has been tough over the past 2 months to prepare for this conference. And finally, we've been all through all the difficulties except the weather and social distance measures that take place in Korea now. Yes, yesterday we had a heavy snowstorm here in Gwangju in Korea. So I doubted whether we could make it because of the internet connections and traffic jams. Some staff members need to come and control this conference technically in time, and it wouldn't have been possible if they cannot come in time. Surprisingly, today we have a beautiful Sunday, beautiful sunshine morning actually, and though it's feeling a bit cold. Furthermore, as we may already know, the Korean government has just introduced tough social distance measures, which is only less than 5 people can gather. So we need to make two separate technical rooms for the technical support. Yet, but I think so far, so good today. And hopefully, yours, my friends and colleagues have enjoyed the morning panels and afternoon panels as well. To make a long story short, once again, welcome all. And now let's get started. First, I'm very happy to introduce Professor Kim Kyung-ha, our Director of BRAIN Korean 21st Center for International Migration and Diaspora Studies. He will deliver an opening speech. Yes, Professor Mr. Kim. Mr. Kim, mic, please.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Zhang. Good afternoon. I am Kyung-ha Kim, Director of the BRAIN Korea 21st Center for the International Migration and Diaspora Innovative Talent at Chonnam National University. It's a great honor for me to welcome all of you to this international conference on living, caring, and networking of diaspora in the age of uncertainty. Now the world is struggling with the isolation and loneliness that come from prolonged quarantine and social distancing caused by COVID-19 pandemic. Our lives have been shrinking, and at the same time, our way of life are demanding us to adjust to the new normal. In the midst of this, we hope that our meeting and exchanges will continue. So we hope that we have established a place online. There are many difficulties in organizing this international conference. In addition to the risk of infectious disease transmission, there are difficulties in preparing for this conference, particularly for participants in Philadelphia, the United States, which is 14 hours apart from Korea, and Buenos Aires, Argentina, on the other side of the globe. The problem of time difference seems to have been very uncomfortable. However, even in such an unfavorable situation, I think we are able to overcome those difficulties thanks to your academic enthusiasm and interest. I am very sure that this international conference is able to share very useful and informative research results and opinions. I would like to express my gratitude to every 40 class from 10 countries on 4 continents. The purpose of this conference is to share our experience and knowledge in regard to symbiosis with infectious disease through diaspora life and imagination in a pandemic situation and the preparation for creative and cooperative space for the future to come. In the course of this conference, we'll explore the daily life of pandemic in the various contexts of life conditions, social culture, and climate around the world, which might be leading to preparation for the future to come. I hope that all of you will be able to share useful and informative ideas in this international conference. In addition, our research center is planning to sign an MOU with the Argentine Association of Korean Studies for continuous exchange and cooperation. I'm sorry that because of the pandemic, it is not possible to meet all of you in person in this conference held in Gwangju, Korea. However, I comfort myself that these restrictions have provided a great opportunity for researchers from more countries to come together. I hope that this online international conference will improve our understanding of the various contexts of diaspora in the age of uncertainty. I also hope that this conference will facilitate the making of new acquaintances and will strengthen personal friendship among participants from the different parts of the world. Once again, I would like to thank all the researchers who have attended this international conference, and I hope this event will become a great opportunity for all attendees to share their research findings and expanding the academic networks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, the second, we also have a pre-recorded welcoming speech from Lee Myung-gyu, the Dean of the College of Social Science, Chonnam National University.
To be healthy and to have a lot of happiness in this. Good afternoon. I am happy to see you all here. My name is Lee Myung-gyu, the Dean of the College of Social Science at Chonnam National University. First of all, I would like to thank you all for your participation and contribution to this international conference despite COVID-19 pandemic. I wish all attendees here and their family to be healthy and to have a lot of happiness in this 2021. Originated from the research group for global Korean business and culture in 1990s. The Center and the Department for Global Diaspora Studies, established in 2002 and 2005 respectively, have become two of the best research and educational institutions on diaspora and international migration in Korea. Since then, two institutions have been fostering a great number of master, doctoral, and postdoctoral researchers from all around the world. Needless to say, the department has just started a new research and educational project called Brain Korea 21, International Migration and Diaspora Innovative Talents, funded by the National Research Foundation of Korea. Today's conference, the Living, Caring, and networking of diaspora in the age of uncertainty. Organized by the two institutions will give us the opportunity to explore the precarious life of migrants and the diaspora during the COVID-19 and the prospect what contributions we can and should be making a living in a post-pandemic world. I would like to first express my gratitude to the 6 professors participating in the interdisciplinary Diaspora Brain Korea 21 project, especially to its director Professor Kim Kyung-hak for organizing this event. Also, I am honored to invite to this conference a total of 40 nationals and international scholars from 10 different countries. And I am deeply grateful to the researchers participating from abroad despite of the time difference. Surely, this conference, the first in 2021, will contribute not only to the progress in the Brain Korea 21 project of the Diaspora Department, but also to the development of diaspora research in Korea. I heard there are many foreign presenters and discussions who will participate for the first time in a conference in Korea. And so I hope this event becomes an opportunity for further academic exchange with Korean researchers and experts in the future. It would have been better to meet and thank you all in person. But due to the current circumstance, the conference has to be hosted online. Once again, I would like to thank to all the participants in today's conference and to the preparatory committee members who made this exchange possible. I hope this international academic conference will become a good opportunity for researchers from various countries to exchange and cooperate. And I hope it will help to create quality research results this year. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for Professor Lee, and thank you for your patience. There was be time delay and some technical issues. Yeah, next, as you all have already heard from Professor Kim, this time we have made an international memorandum of understanding between Chonnam National University and the Association of Korean Studies in Argentina on 26 January 2021. So here is some kind of congratulatory message from Professor Liliana Palacios de Cosianzi from Argentina. As I said, we have kind of technical issues, I think.
Pleasure to be in contact with you from the Argentine Association of Korea Studies. We are very happy for me. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be in contact with you from the Argentine Association of Korea Studies. We are very happy for making this agreement between the Department of Global Diaspora Studies of Chonnam National University of Korea and our association in Argentina. Thank you very much.
Yeah, once again, sorry for the technical issues. So now I think we have a few minutes left to start another panels followed. So hope you all enjoy the coffee break at home or workplace, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hear me well?
Yes.
This is panel 3. It's the title of this panel is Global Digital Diaspora.
소리 조금만 높일까요?
Thank you for all for participating this panel. And I guess apart from those, I can see from this screen, there will be other audiences who are watching YouTube live streaming, which I have actually done in this morning. So we have total 3 presenters. And of course, 3 discussions.
3시 반쯤 되면 끝날
And we have only 2 hours. So I think we need to be quite strict on the making the time that we allocated. So I ask the presenters, all presenters, to have 20 minutes maximum for your presentation. And for discussion, I think 10 minutes for each discussion. And then for the rest of the time, I hope we would have rest of the time, like about 30 minutes for corresponding the comments from the presenters. And also if there are some other questions from the other audiences, apart from presenters and the discussants, and we can have more questions from the audience. Okay, my name is Julia Shin, and I'm based in the sociology department, and also I'm also participating in this Brain Korea 21st as a professor for Diaspora department. So I can see all the presenters from all over the world. First of all, our first presenter is located in Germany, I can see. So I guess it's really early in the morning.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, even if the time is very inconvenient for you. And also we have a second presenter based in Kazakhstan, I think. Yes, and also the third one is in Indonesia. I can see Dr. Nara, yeah, from there. Okay, so shall we start with the first presenter, Mr. Seung-eun Kang, based in University of Bonn in Germany, and who is a research associate in the Department of Korean Studies. So you have 20 minutes, Dr. Kang, and you may start now.
Thank you for inviting me here today. And to correct, I'm not a doctor yet, so I'm just a research associate. But anyway, thank you for inviting me here today. I'm very glad to hear your papers and also your insight. And I'm honored to be here today. Yes, today I'm going to talk about the COVID-19 and the challenges of the Asian communities in German context, especially about how people reacted to the so-called corona racism during the pandemics. His brief introduction of myself. I skipped this part. Wrapping up the year of 2020, Bernhard Franke, the head of the Federal Anti-Discrimination Agency of Germany, noted that there has been a rapid increase of discrimination based on racism in Germany. According to him, there were 3,200 cases reported to FADA a year before, while the number reached 6,000 in the same time period, making a nearly 70% increase. He explained, and I quote, "Corona has also acted like a fire accelerator for the discrimination of individual groups of people." Franke mentioned that 3 ethnic groups were particularly often the target of racism. That is, people of Asian descent, Sinti and Roma descent, and Turkish and Arabic descent. While the last two groups have long been discussed in the German context, the discrimination against Asian people has come to the fore during the global pandemic of COVID-19.
Thank you for being on time, because you spent the 20 minutes exactly. Right, I think it's very interesting topic, and I think the digital activism and digital solidarity movement is not only kind of very recent one, but it has been very emerging area for very significant emerging area for study in politics and also sociological social movement, and also this diaspora studies. So it's very intriguing kind of new empirical evidence that you have shown us happening in Germany. Thank you. There is a little change of order of presentation because the professor, the German Kim, is joining us a bit late. So our second presenter will be Dr. Nara Indra Prima from Indonesia. He is going to present about some of the hostility attitudes happening towards Chinese foreign workers in Indonesia during COVID-19 outbreak. Okay, off you go, Dr. Nara.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for the opportunity. My name is Nara Indra, and I am a lecturer in Department of International Relations, Parahyangan Catholic University in Indonesia. And allow me to present my papers towards the hostility against the Chinese foreign workers in Indonesia during the pandemic COVID-19 outbreaks. Okay, can you see my presentation? Okay, is it already shown in the screen? Hello?
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
Okay, the title of my presentation is "The Pandemic as a Catalyst for Consolidation of Online Media and Social Networks of the CIS Korean Diasporas." There will be a short introduction that the COVID-19 has a disastrous impact on the social and private lives, people of all countries of the planet. Yeah. And we feel it right now, having our conference online, and yeah, everybody would like to meet the people offline to share opinions, or yeah, to get the feedback, yeah, from real contacts. And yeah, this time, yeah. For the first time, the phenomenon of pandemic made both all sciences in natural and social and humanities pay attention to it. All topics, the issues of pandemic, they become universal for the contemporary researchers. And the destructive impact of the global viral disease on the mass media forced government of many countries to render support to the state, and also even a big private media companies. I've got some data from Russia, that the Russian government render assistance, huge assistance to 30,000 small and big newspapers, and also TV channels and radio broadcastings. Yeah, we have the same problem here in Kazakhstan for the national newspapers and dailies, and also TV broadcasting. Because the moment, I don't know how it's in other countries, but here in Kazakhstan, many people are looking in internet for the hot news and also even the rumors about the pandemic and how the people in the society, including the ethnic groups, should react on the new trends of the contemporary time. And so in the paper, I'll try to examine the new challenges of the diasporic mass media and the potential benefits of expanding online communication and the network. That has became obvious, but still diaspora didn't react on the necessary level and to the these challenges of pandemic. But there is one phenomenon, and phenomenon is that the diaspora media, exactly the diaspora media, they have been less heated by pandemic. And there are some specific or peculiarities of Korean diaspora media, why they have in relatively better position than others, even big national mass media. Firstly, because the Korean diaspora mass media are less dependent on the governmental budgeting than others. Secondly, unlike other big daily newspapers, Korean diaspora newspaper have less dependent from the fall of advertising incomes, because for example, our Korean diaspora newspaper here in Kazakhstan, Koryo is named in this newspaper. The share of the advertising incomes made less than 2%. The same is for all other Korean diaspora newspapers. Thirdly, all Korean diaspora newspapers are the best weeklies, and part of them they publish it from time to time, or once a month. They are not dailies. That means if the newspaper has a break for a 2 week or month, sometimes the breaks can last.
Thank you, Professor Kim. Thank you for sticking to the time, allocated time for presentation. Thank you very much. I think our three presentations are kind of well linked, and it's under the our main theme of digital diaspora. I think we've been having known that one of the important elements of expanding the role of diaspora is the mobilization of the diasporic communities. And I think today our presentations are all saying about the importance of digital communication and the degree of digitalization of the community will become very significant, the role for maintaining and expanding the strength or empowerment of the diasporic community. Right. Okay. So I think it's time that we inviting our discussants for our three presentations. I think discussion also should be in order of the presentation. So our first discussant will be Dr. Goon No. And she will discuss about the paper presented by Mr. Kang.
Diana.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, you can mute. Yes, your mic. Thank you. So, Dr. No, could you? Yeah. All right. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Yeah. Could you start? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Goon No, and I'm the discussant of Sung-Hoon Kang's presentation. The topic and the content, the paper itself and the presentation also with all the very intriguing visual, the posters and everything. that Song Gang has presented today are very important to understand, I think. Not only how Asian immigrants in the Western societies have experienced new reality of everyday lives, which the pandemic disease COVID-19 has caused, but also how infectious diseases, epidemics, and pandemics in general have often been racialized throughout our modern history. So I would like to invite you to think about this situation of racialization of the COVID-19, not only limited to the COVID-19, but situated in the broader history. So many studies have shown that racism and xenophobia targeting particular communities of ethnic minorities and foreign immigrants especially during the pandemics and epidemics are very common. Therefore, research like Mr. Gang's can expand our understanding of socio-cultural aspects of pandemic diseases like COVID-19 by situating them within the human history of diseases, as well as of how immigrant communities respond to the racialized challenges that are brought by the diseases. There are so many interesting points I would like to mention, and I'm actually in the middle of writing very similar article about the experience of Korean Chinese in South Korea during the COVID-19 period. So I have many questions and interesting comments. But since we have limited time, I will focus on 3 questions. And these questions are not just not about the challenging Dr. Gang, but I would like to provide Dr. Gang more time to talk about his research in these 3 areas, because I think probably he couldn't really include what I am about to ask because of the limited time and the limited space for his article that I've read. So the first question is about four dimensions of anti-Asian racism. And I liked this categorization of anti-Asian racism, the corona racism that's happening in Germany against Chinese-looking Asian immigrants. But I am wondering if is there any particular aspects in these 4 areas, 4 dimensions, as particular as corona racism, different from any other racism caused by diseases or any other catastrophic social situations. So what are the particular aspects of each domain in corona racism different from any other occasions? Is it different in forms and strategies in any other racism today? Is there any particular characteristics of these 4 domains or how these 4 domains interact with each other during the COVID-19 situation differently from any other infectious diseases? And we all agree, I think, that this racism that we see today over the world against Chinese, against any people who might be the carriers, this is not just racialized disease, I think. It's not really new, but something deeply rooted in modern forms of racism against the social weak. So I would like to ask Mr. Gang what he thinks what the COVID-19 situation is different in these 4 dimensions. I'm particularly curious of this question because when I was looking at how Korean Chinese experience this COVID-19 era in South Korea, online discussions against racist and xenophobic discussions by South Koreans against Korean Chinese were very different from xenophobic mentions, the xenophobic comments against Korean Chinese before the COVID-19 era. because Korean Chinese are ethnically Korean, a part of ethnic Korean nation. So before the COVID-19, it was less about biological differences between South Koreans and Korean Chinese, but more of economically how they are so-called stealing the jobs and how they are causing confusions in the Korean economy. But after, since the COVID-19, the xenophobic attack against Korean Chinese are somewhat different, that they are caused as more biologically susceptible to the virus, so they would be easier to be the coronavirus carriers. So I'm interested in what kind of changes you see in this racism against Asians. Another example that I would like to suggest you to think about is what a feminist writer, Susan Sontag, wrote on illness as metaphor, or AIDS and its metaphor. Those two are her books. And according to Sontag, different metaphors are used to successfully create biases and prejudices and stigma, not towards not only the patients of the diseases, but also people of specific races, classes, genders, and sexualities as potential and or hidden carriers of the diseases. And so Sontag in her books describes in length different metaphors that are used to describe these patients and potential carriers differently. So for example, sexually transmitted diseases like syphilis and AIDS are used with different descriptions, but even with these two diseases are described differently by people, believed differently by the society. So syphilis was in Europe was related to loneliness, artistic inspiration, but never be really race disease. But AIDS, although this is not entirely sexually transmitted infection, there are many people without sexual intercourses. They are infected by AIDS or HIVs, but are always connected to sexual promiscuity and the African race, which is influenced by the colonial legacy. So, and other diseases that are not sexually transmitted, like tuberculosis or leprosy or Spanish flu, they all have somewhat different types of metaphors that are used to stigmatize the patients and possible patients. So I'm wondering if you have seen particular expressions and particular metaphors that are used to describe the situation against Asian immigrants that are different from other racist discourse against Asians.
So if we connect, then we can also see some value. The study adds some value on this regard as well. So these are some strength perspective of the article, but there are some comments. Hopefully, I think the author, Dr. Nara, takes it constructive way. So again, my intention is not to challenge Dr. Nara, but to help develop the paper as a finest paper. So shall I talk about some fallings of this article? Okay, shall I continue? Okay, then let me start from the introduction of the paper. So I read the manuscript 2 times, and so frankly speaking, there are a lot of deterministic statements, and several statements are begging for citation. For example, the first line of the article, Dr. Nara starts, so let me read slowly. He mentions the opening statement in the article. He mentions that the Indonesian society arguably have a long history of hostility against foreign Chinese citizens from People's Republic of China. Okay, we understood, but I think this statement, this is one example. Several statements are really begging for citations, some similar like that. So again, Dr. Nara mentions in the manuscript is that Chinese companies misused tourist visa, something like that. So I suggest if we can cite. So the second comment from introduction is that we all understand COVID-19 triggered hostility towards Chinese workers all over the world, including Indonesia. But the topic of the manuscript is escalation of hostility. So so far as we understand, escalation has different stages. So we are curious to know in what level, in what stages. So these points are missing in the manuscript. So we are also curious, especially I as an author, as a reader, I was curious to know about how many Chinese workers are there and what levels of hostility, and how the hostility is similar or differences to other countries or other workers in Indonesia. These are some comments from introduction section. So let me mention some more comment from method section. I'm really curious to know, so why Dr. Nara highlighted the unpublished work in the method section, which is not even peer review, and this is his one ongoing work. So very curious to know why he highlighted. And then again, in the method section, Dr. Nara tries to mention about stereotyping using elements of interview from different article content, different articles and content of the newspaper. So again, connecting to the introduction, I think some literatures are missing there. Some previous literature in global context and in Indonesia about stereotype faced by migrant workers in the host culture, that was missing. So it was not well connected. So again, let me talk something a little more about finding. So the finding of the study are mainly about newspaper content, context, content, an analysis, and author has pointed 3 types of stereotypes. So he summarized overall from 3 different types of stereotype, like he mentioned about Chinese workers in Indonesia as a job stealer. They are as a virus spreader, and they are communist agent. This is the finding that Dr. Nara mentions. So again, overall, the finding of the study is not well connected with the introduction section, because in the method section, the author, he talks about many theories. He talks about theories of ethnocentrism and theories of ethno-nationalism, and he talks about labeling the minorities in the host culture. So many things came, but he doesn't explain, doesn't connect these ideas in, he doesn't integrate these all things in the manuscript. So I think it is really nice if if we could connect these theories and strengthen it throughout the manuscript. Overall, from my personal perspective, this is an interesting article and I enjoy reading it. Thank you for the opportunity. So these are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Madi.
Thank you. We will come back to hear Dr. Nara's response. Now we turn to our last discussants. Dr. Kim Sang-chul,
Yes.
can you start? You have 10 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I deliver the gratitude to the host for the organizing online platform sharing recent research and trends on various Asian communities and its persons in the COVID-19 situations. And also, I would like to express the Professor Germán Kim's efforts and his contributions for the development of Korean studies in the CIS countries and activating Korean communities in the various levels of generations from youth to the old generations with offline and online meetings, and his recent efforts of introducing and releasing many important video resources on CIS ethnic Korean histories and cultures via YouTube and Facebook and other SNS networks to the other Korean communities outside of CIS countries. This presentation clearly displays the current situation, motivations, and developing direction for the traditional ethnic Korean medias, including newspaper, ethnic Korean TV news program, and recently activated internet-based information portal or hub on CIS ethnic Koreans, and the various levels of the communities by actual communities, by ages, by region, and their actual working sectors under IT-based untapped communications period in COVID-19 period, especially among the younger ethnic Korean CIS businessmen in all over the CIS countries, and including CIS ethnic Koreans who works and live in Korea together. With all information and recommendation and future direction in this presentation, principally I agree to his viewpoints, approaches, and suggestions. Furthermore, I would like to add a few additional suggestions for further extending and strengthening interconnections among various ethnic Korean communities with the CIS ethnic Korean communities under the IT-based media tools and understanding activities to various Korean communities all over the world. Traditionally, the biggest barrier for researchers or ordinary persons who wants to understand or contact with the CIS ethnic Korean communities was the difference of the ordinary communication languages. For most ethnic Korean communities, except the CIS regions, Koreans utilize Korean or English as the main tool of the communications. But in the CIS region, this role has been assigned to the Russian languages. So the language barrier was the biggest problem for overcoming to extending, developing the relation between CIS Koreans and outside of another Koreans. But in the situation of the recent situation, multimedia-based resources which created in Russia would have serviced with the auto-translation service of some SNS service. This means that language barriers would not be barrier for future exchanging connections between CIS ethnic Koreans and non-CIS Koreans. So the creators of such multimedia resources also would consider such functions for extend accessibility in the internet space for other viewers in audiences, especially automatic translation service quality between Russian and English is considerably well functionalized than translation between Russian and Korean directly. So it means that there are many possibilities, many methods to understand the mutual understanding of the both sides of the situations. So proper using of the automatic translation service of SNS should be considered on the side of the contents creators in CIS region and watchers of such multimedia resources outside of CIS region. And also there are many YouTube resources are created and have been accessed, which of them are made by ethnic CIS Koreans in South Korea for their study, staying in South Korea for their studying or for their working, or other countries of the outside of CIS. In that case, most of them make more efforts to deliver accurate information and current situation of CIS Koreans or their actual home countries. But most cases, they do not summarize or deliver the history of the origin or peculiarities of ethnic CIS Koreans because they do not have proper chances to learn about the history of their parents, grandparents, grandparents, because still most CIS ethnic Koreans in CIS have less chance to understand their historical origin and the proud histories of their grandparents and grandparents. So I guess many multimedia resources in the internet sector, especially YouTube or Facebook, should consider strengthen such educational factor of the younger generation of ethnic CIS Koreans to understand and to be proud of elder generation history and life in the two transitions at the beginning of 20th century and at the end of 20th century. And traditionally, CIS Korean media should utilize utilize the internet-based multimedia to overcome geographical limitation and expand their coverage and role as a hub of real-time-based reciprocal information exchange between CIS ethnic Koreans side and outside of ethnic Korean communities. With these purposes, it is necessary to renovate some internet hub or homepage from current Russian version to the multi-language service version, Russian, English, Korean, or in Central Asian case, Kazakh or Uzbek, by cooperation with the related Korean organizations or Korean volunteers and the host of major CIS ethnic Korean portals or hubs. Under this unexpected rapid extension and innovation process of multimedia and internet-based CIS ethnic Korean media by COVID-19 pandemic situation, more younger CIS ethnic Korean IT experts would participate and lead this innovation process and strong motive to accelerate decreasing and overcoming psychological distances between CIS ethnic Koreans and their historical homelands. Thanks for attention for comments.
As to the suggestions, rather than question of Professor Kim San-chol, I'm totally agree that the Koryo Saram or Korean Koreans in the post-Soviet space, including almost 80,000 migrants being now permanently in South Korea as labor migrants. Yeah, they are all Russian speaking. Yeah, Russian speaking. So even the Joseonjok, the Chinese Koreans, which have a very similar past, like Koryo Saram, they are still mostly Korean language speaking. Yeah, it is not standard Seoul language, but nevertheless, they speak Joseonmal or the language of the ancestors, which were migrated in the second half of 19th century from northern provinces, Hamgyongdo and Pyeongnyangdo to Gangdo or to Manchuria, what's today northwest China, 3 provinces, or Russian maritime region in the Russian Far East. So that means among over 7 million overseas Koreans, only we, around 500,000 Koreans are speaking Russian. There are reasons, yeah, historical, political. I will not talk in details why, but I'm totally agree that this Russian language content is the reason of the limited subscribers and users of the contemporary audiovisual and textual content on